I used to think I knew exactly how the worst night of my life would begin. I imagined a phone call after midnight, a hospital corridor, a police officer standing beneath a porch light with his hat in his hands. I never imagined it would begin in my mother's backyard, beneath strings of borrowed lights, while 40 relatives balanced paper plates on their knees, and my sister lifted one manicured finger toward the man I was going to marry. He's a nobody, Naomi. You do realize that, right? Remember that sentence. Because 11 minutes later, 2 black SUVs would stop beside the yard. 6 men in dark suits would enter through the side gate. Every one of them would bow to the nobody my sister had just humiliated. But the bow was not the hardest thing I learned that night. The hardest thing was realizing that the man I loved had told me the truth about his heart while hiding nearly everything about his life. My name is Naomi Bellwether, and 3 years before that engagement party, I was tired in a way sleep could not repair. I worked the overnight shift at the Blue Plate, a 24-hour diner off Route 9, while carrying a full accounting course load at the community college. My mother had raised 2 daughters on a school cafeteria salary, and I had promised myself I would not ask her for $1 more than I absolutely needed. So I learned to survive between midnight and sunrise. I learned that the man who stirred his coffee exactly 12 times wanted conversation, while the woman who held her mug with both hands usually wanted silence. I learned which truckers tipped in quarters, which students were stretching 1 plate of fries through an entire study session, and which customers believed snapping their fingers made food arrive faster. I also learned that being looked at was not the same as being seen. Min Park first walked into the diner on a Tuesday at 2 in the morning. He wore a charcoal button-down with the sleeves rolled neatly to his forearms. His knuckles were calloused. His posture was careful, almost restrained, as though he had spent years teaching himself not to take up more room than necessary. "Black coffee," he said, "and wheat toast. That all. That is all." His bill was $6 and change. He left a 40% tip without waiting to see whether I noticed. He returned the next Tuesday. Same time, same order, same quiet thanks when I refilled his cup. Then he came back the Tuesday after that. For 2 months, I assumed he worked nights somewhere nearby. Security, maybe. A warehouse. Something physical, judging from his hands and the way his eyes automatically measured every entrance. He drove an ordinary sedan so forgettable that I could not have described its color 5 minutes after watching him leave. He wore the same 3 shirts in rotation. He never flashed money. He never spoke loudly enough for the next booth to hear him. He asked about my accounting exam and remembered the professor's name the following week. He remembered my landlord's broken boiler, my mother's knee appointment, and the stray cat behind the dumpster that I had named General because he patrolled the alley like he owned it. Half my regulars forgot my name after a year. Min remembered a cat after hearing about him once. One Tuesday, 4 men came in near the end of my shift, loud and pleased with themselves. One snapped his fingers because his eggs had gone cold while he was busy talking. I apologized, though it was not my fault, and carried the plate back to the kitchen. Min said nothing. He finished his coffee, paid, and left. When I cleared his place, I found an extra 20 folded beneath the mug so the vent would not blow it away. I asked him about it the next week. "You had a bad table," he said. "I have bad tables every night." "Yes. So why the extra 20? He shrugged. It did not seem like a night that needed one more bad thing in it. It was not the money that stayed with me. It was the fact that he had noticed. Another Tuesday, in the middle of winter, my car refused to start. I stood in the freezing parking lot after my shift, trying to calculate whether I could pay for a tow and still buy the textbook I needed that week. Min came outside and found me staring beneath the hood as though determination could restart an engine. "Battery?" he asked. I'm pretending I know enough to answer that. He looked beneath the hood, then admitted, with complete seriousness, "I know less than you do." That made me laugh for the first time all night. He stepped away and made one quiet phone call. 20 minutes later, a man arrived with jumper cables, restarted my car, and refused payment. "Who was that?" I asked. "A guy I know. At 3 in the morning? He keeps unusual hours." I should have asked more questions. But at that point in my life, kindness arrived so rarely that I had learned not to interrogate it. I simply thanked him and drove home. Min never told me what he did for a living. Whenever I asked, he said he worked in logistics, mostly at night, and travelled when the work required it. That answer seemed ordinary enough. I had locked drawers of my own. The father who had disappeared from our lives, the semester I had nearly dropped out, the 2 jobs I had lost before the diner, and the terror that even after earning my degree, I would still be one emergency away from losing everything. Everybody hides something. I did not yet understand the difference between protecting a wound and concealing an entire world. We fell in love slowly enough that neither of us could point to the exact moment it happened. There was no dramatic confession, no rainstorm, no song swelling in the background. There were Tuesdays. Min began arriving 15 minutes before my break so we could sit together in the back booth. He helped me memorize accounting formulas even though he claimed numbers were not his strength. I discovered he hated mayonnaise, loved old detective movies, and could fall asleep anywhere except an airplane. He discovered I hummed when I was nervous and alphabetized my groceries when I was avoiding a difficult decision. The first time he kissed me, it was beside the diner's ice machine after sunrise. The first time he met my mother, she hugged him before he had completely stepped through the door. My mother, Lorraine Bellwether, has always trusted kindness faster than credentials. She watched Min carry dishes into her kitchen without being asked, listened to him ask about her work instead of announcing his own, and decided within an hour that he belonged. My older sister, Chandra, made the opposite calculation. Chandra is 2 years older than me and has treated those additional 24 months like a permanent leadership position. She married young to Reginald Ashcombe, who owned a commercial development company and spoke about every completed project as if he had personally rebuilt civilization. Reginald never entered a room without making sure someone knew which building he owned, which councilman had returned his call, or which resort had upgraded his suite. By their 2nd anniversary, Chandra had learned his language. She stopped asking whether people were happy and began asking whether they were positioned well. She stopped calling vacations vacations and called them escapes. She described restaurants by the difficulty of obtaining a reservation. She measured men by what could be said about them in a single impressive sentence. Min resisted that kind of sentence. What does he actually do? She asked the first time I told her we were serious. Logistics. What kind? He works nights. Sometimes he travels. That is not an answer. It is the answer he gave me. Chandra stared at me as though I had confessed to dating a man who lived beneath a bridge. You are an accountant, Naomi. Details are supposed to matter to you. They do. Apparently, not all of them. At first, her comments came wrapped as concern. Did Min have a 5-year plan? Did he own his car? Was his job stable? Could he provide the kind of life I deserved? I told her I had supported myself since 19 and was not looking for a provider. I was looking for a partner. I told her Min had never made me feel ashamed of my exhaustion, my cheap apartment, or the nights when dinner was cereal because tuition had taken the rest. That is sweet, she said. She said sweet the way someone praises a child's drawing while quietly deciding not to hang it. Min proposed 8 months before the engagement party, on a Tuesday at 2 in the morning, in the Blue Plate parking lot beneath a neon sign that flickered whenever the wind picked up. He held out a thin gold band with one modest stone. I know this is not much of a setting, he said. It is where we met. That is why it matters. He told me the ring mattered less than the place, because the diner was where he had first watched me remain kind, while the world gave me every excuse not to be. I said yes before he finished the sentence. My mother cried for 10 minutes when we told her. Chandra looked at the ring for 3 seconds too long. It is understated, she said. I love it. Of course. I just thought he might have saved for something more substantial. It is exactly what I wanted. She nodded, but over the next 8 months she brought up the ring 3 more times as if our earlier conversations had been erased. Sunday dinners became an obstacle course. One evening, while my mother served pot roast, Chandra returned from a luxury resort with Reginald and mentioned the resort's name twice before everyone had sat down. So when do we meet Min properly? She asked. And is Min his full name? It is. What does his family do? I do not know everything about his family. Reginald looked up from his plate. You're engaged and you don't know what the family does? I know the man. That is not the same thing, Chandra said. No, I replied. Sometimes it is more important. My mother quickly asked whether anyone wanted more potatoes. Uncle Dale Ashcombe made those dinners worse. Dale was Reginald's uncle and ran a logistics brokerage from the same office park as Reginald's company. He had the friendly manner of a man who considered every conversation an investment. For months, he kept mentioning a junior partner at his firm named Curtis. Sharp young man, Dale would say. Owns a condo. Moving up fast. You two would have gotten along. I am engaged, I reminded him. Of course. I'm only saying, before everything became official. Everything was already official. Dale knew that. What I did not know was why he cared. At the time, I assumed he simply shared Chandra's belief that a man's value should be visible from across a room. I did not understand that Dale had been studying my future the way he studied contracts, looking for an opening that might benefit him later. Min never reacted to any of it. When I told him what Chandra had said about the ring, he asked, "Do you still like it?" "I love it." Then we have solved the only relevant problem. When I warned him that Reginald would probably interrogate him at the engagement party, Min smiled. "I have survived more difficult rooms than your sister's backyard." I thought he was joking. The week before the party, I learned that he was not. We were eating takeout on my apartment floor because my only table had one leg shorter than the others. Min's phone vibrated. He glanced at it, and something in his face changed, not fear, exactly, but focus. "Work?" I asked. "Yes. Everything okay? It will be." He stepped into the hallway to take the call. Through the thin door, I heard only one sentence. "No security at the house. That is final." When he returned, I asked what that meant. "A difficult client," he said. It was the first direct lie he ever told me. I did not recognize it until much later. My mother offered to host the engagement party in her backyard because, as she put it, a celebration does not become more meaningful because the chairs match. She borrowed folding chairs from the church, rented a white arch, and hung string lights between the fence posts. Chandra's caterer friend supplied trays of finger food. My aunties arrived early and rearranged everything my mother had already arranged. By sunset, the yard looked warm, imperfect, and exactly like us. Min picked me up in the same ordinary sedan he had driven for 2 years. We sat outside my mother's house for a moment without moving. Through the fence, I could see the lights beginning to glow. I could hear Auntie Pearl directing someone who had not asked for direction. "You okay?" Min asked. Bracing. "For Chandra?" "For Chandra, Reginald, Uncle Dale, and anyone else who thinks an engagement party is a public audit." He took my hand. His thumb traced the familiar line across my palm. "Whatever they say tonight does not change anything true about us. I know. It is noise until we decide it is not." I wanted to believe that. The party began better than I expected. My mother cried the good kind of tears before we had been there 10 minutes. She hugged Min so hard his glasses went crooked. Then my aunties surrounded him. Auntie Pearl planted herself in front of him with her arms crossed. "Where is your family from?" "My mother's side is from Busan. My father's family has been here 2 generations. Brothers?" "1 older brother." "Do you cook?" "Badly." "Good sleeper?" Min blinked. "Yes. Naomi is not." "I need to know what I am dealing with if you two give Lorraine grandchildren." Auntie Pearl. "What?" "I am gathering information." Min laughed, and that laugh disarmed half the yard. He answered every question patiently. He carried plates for my mother. He listened to Uncle Bernard's 20-minute story about a fishing boat without checking his phone once. By the end of the first hour, almost everyone loved him. Almost. Reginald found him beside the drinks table. I watched from across the yard as Reginald approached with a glass in one hand and the confident smile he used before reducing somebody to a category. "So," he said loudly, "Naomi tells us you're in logistics." "Something like that," Min replied. "Something like that? Freight. Transportation. Operations. What does that mean exactly?" "You drive trucks?" "Sometimes." Reginald laughed and clapped him on the shoulder. "Good for you, man. Honest work. Somebody has to do it." Min looked at the hand on his shoulder, then at Reginald. For 1 second, I saw something different in his face. Not anger. Evaluation. Then it was gone. "Somebody does," he said. Reginald walked away, satisfied, unaware that he had just been measured more thoroughly than he had measured Min. Uncle Dale replaced him 10 minutes later. Logistics can be a good business, Dale said. If you know the right people. I know a few. What side are you on? Brokerage? Fleet? Port operations? A little of each. That answer should have made Dale curious. Instead, he heard only what he expected. I could introduce you around, he said. Help you move beyond driving, if you're serious. Min's eyes settled on him. That is generous. Dale smiled. Family helps family. Later, I would remember the way Min said generous. At the time, I only heard politeness. Reginald gave a toast at 9 o'clock without being invited. He tapped a fork against his glass until the conversations died. To Naomi, he began, who has always worked harder than anyone I know. That part was true. And to Min, we're glad to welcome you. Family is family. It does not matter what a man does for a living, as long as he treats our girl well. People applauded because the insult had been wrapped carefully enough to resemble kindness. My cousin Dennis caught my eye and lifted one eyebrow. At least one person understood. Min raised his glass with everyone else, completely unbothered. I was furious enough for both of us. Reginald cornered me near the folding chairs afterward. Listen, he said, dropping his voice into what he considered a generous register. Whatever you need for the wedding, Chandra and I can help. Venue. Catering. Maybe something toward a better apartment. We are fine. No shame if you aren't. Not everybody can throw a proper wedding on one income and a trucker's schedule. I have an income too. Of course. I only mean you deserve something impressive. I deserve something honest. His smile tightened. Sure. By the dessert table, Chandra was studying my ring. I noticed he did not upgrade it for the party. Why would he? People will ask. People have asked. Mostly because you keep telling them to. I am trying to protect you. From what? She looked across the yard at Min, who was helping my mother carry an empty tray toward the kitchen. From waking up in 5 years and realizing kindness does not pay a mortgage. I lowered my voice. You have spent 8 months trying to make me ashamed of a man who has never once made me ashamed of myself. That sounds beautiful, Naomi. It also sounds like something people say when they are trying not to discuss money. I walked away before I ruined my mother's party. For the next 40 minutes, the pressure rose in small increments. A cousin asked Min which trucking company employed him. Dale offered him a business card. Reginald told a story about firing a contractor who did not understand professional standards. Chandra introduced Min to one of her friends by saying, "He works nights," then pausing long enough for the woman to supply her own conclusion. Min remained calm. That calmness began to irritate them. People like Reginald need superiority to produce a reaction. When it does not, they increase the pressure. At 10:15, Chandra found me beside the sheet cake. Her wine glass was empty. Her patience was too. "I need you to think clearly for once," she said. "I have been thinking clearly. You are marrying a man who will not even tell your family what he does. He told you. You decided the answer was beneath you. Because it is not an answer. Logistics. Nights. Sometimes trucks. Does he own anything? Does he have savings? Does he even have health insurance? Lower your voice. No. Everyone is pretending this is romantic because they do not want to hurt your feelings." 2 nearby conversations stopped. My mother turned from across the yard. Min stood near the arch, close enough to hear us. Chandra pointed toward him. "You finished college while working overnight. You dragged yourself out of debt. You could have chosen anyone, and you are settling for a man with no plan, no name, and nothing to offer you. Stop. He is a nobody, Naomi. You do realize that, right?" The words cut through the yard. Everything paused. My mother's mouth fell open. Reginald looked toward Min with the faint satisfaction of a man whose private opinion had finally been announced by someone else. Uncle Dale did not look surprised at all. Min looked at Chandra. Then he looked at me. His face was calm, but I knew him well enough to see the decision happening behind his eyes. Before either of us could speak, a pair of headlights moved slowly across the fence. A second pair of headlights followed the first. 2 black SUVs turned into the gravel lot beside my mother's house and stopped in perfect alignment. Their engines cut off at nearly the same moment. Nobody in the yard moved. The doors opened. 6 men stepped out wearing dark suits without ties. They did not look like chauffeurs, wedding guests, or men who had accidentally arrived at the wrong address. Their eyes swept the fence line, the roof, the windows, the gate. Every movement was quiet and practiced. The man in front touched an earpiece and said something I could not hear. Then the side gate opened. The 6 men entered in a loose formation. 2 remained near the gate. 2 moved along the edge of the yard. The remaining pair walked directly toward Min. They stopped 6 feet away and bowed. Not a polite nod. A full, deliberate bow. "Mr. Park," the lead man said. "Forgive the interruption." An unscreened vehicle stopped 2 blocks from the address. The plate failed the first check. We wanted visual confirmation until the threat assessment cleared. The silence that followed felt physical. Chandra's pointing hand remained in the air, but the rest of her body had gone still. Reginald lowered his glass. My mother pressed both hands to her chest. Min closed his eyes for half a second, the way a patient man does when a problem he hoped to postpone has arrived exactly on schedule. "Sang-hoon," he said, "I told you to remain outside unless the threat was confirmed." The vehicle left before local eyes could identify the driver. We chose caution. "This is my fiancé's family home." "Yes, sir." Sang-hoon's gaze moved briefly toward Chandra, then Reginald. His expression remained professionally neutral, but somehow that neutrality felt more condemning than anger. "We will hold the perimeter." He bowed again. Then he turned toward me and lowered his head with unmistakable respect. "Miss Bellwether." My knees nearly failed. The men withdrew to the fence line, but the yard did not restart. 40 people stared at Min, as though someone had replaced him while they were blinking. Reginald found his voice first. "Mr. Park?" My aunties began whispering. "Park!" The Park family. The private Korean-American family whose holding companies owned warehouses, freight terminals, security firms, and part of the downtown harbor development. Their name appeared on buildings, charitable foundations, and business journals, but almost never beside a photograph. They had spent 2 generations avoiding cameras and 3 generations acquiring influence. The man my family thought drove trucks worked inside that empire, or controlled part of it. I did not know which answer frightened me more. Min turned toward me. "Naomi." I stepped back before he could touch me. The movement hurt him. I saw it. "Do not," I said quietly. The yard was still listening, but for once I did not care. "You told me you worked in logistics." "I do." "You told me that man with the jumper cables was a guy you knew." "He is." "You told me the call about security was a difficult client." Min said nothing. That was a lie. Yes, the single word landed harder than the SUVs. My sister had been wrong about his worth, but she had accidentally exposed something real. I was engaged to a man whose life had doors I had never been allowed to open. My mother stepped forward. "Maybe you two should talk inside." "No," I said. "Not yet." Min's voice remained low. "I wanted to tell you." "When?" "Before the wedding. That is not a date. I kept waiting for a moment that would not make everything between us feel contaminated. Everything already feels contaminated." Chandra's face changed. The humiliation she had been feeling disappeared beneath sudden concern. "Naomi," she whispered. I looked at her. "Do not make this about being right." "You were not right. I know. You judged him because you thought he had nothing. He hid the truth because he thought I might want him for what he had. Both of you made decisions about who I was without asking me." That silenced her. Min took one careful step forward. "I wanted you to choose me before you knew the name." "I did choose you. I know." "No. You know that I chose the version of you that you allowed me to see." His face tightened. The band hired for the evening stood motionless beside their equipment. My mother's sheet cake remained untouched behind us. The security men watched the perimeter without appearing to watch us. I took off my engagement ring. A sound moved through the yard, not a gasp exactly, but something close. I did not hand the ring back. I closed my fingers around it. "I am not ending this tonight," I told Min. "But I am not pretending a bow answered every question. It did not. I need the truth without your guards, your family name, or 40 people watching. You will have it. And until then, you do not come to my apartment. You do not send anyone to follow me. You do not solve this with access, money, or protection. I would never. You already made choices for me because you thought you knew what I could handle." He stopped. Then he nodded. You are right. That answer saved something between us, though I did not know it yet. He did not argue. He did not reach for the ring. He did not ask the guards to remove me from the humiliation or tell me that secrecy had been for my own good. He turned to Sang-hoon. Withdraw everyone except the drivers. Sang-hoon hesitated. Sir, now. The men obeyed. Within 2 minutes, 4 of the 6 guards were back inside the SUVs. The remaining 2 stayed with the vehicles, not the yard. Min looked at my mother. Mrs. Bellwether, I am sorry I brought this into your home. My mother studied him for a long moment. You brought a secret, she said. My daughters brought the noise. Then she looked at Chandra. Put your finger down. Chandra lowered her hand. My mother clapped once, hard. There is food getting cold, a cake nobody has cut, and a band being paid by the hour. Anybody who cannot behave like family can leave through the same gate those men came through. That broke the paralysis. The band began playing. My aunties moved toward the cake. Conversations restarted in low, stunned currents. Min remained beside the arch, looking at me. I wanted to run to him. I wanted to slap him. I wanted to ask him every question at once. Instead, I put the ring in my purse and walked into my mother's house alone. The first climax of that night belonged to the guards. The second belonged to the door I closed between us. I slept in my childhood bedroom that night, though sleep is too generous a word for what happened. I lay beneath the water stain, shaped like a rabbit, and replayed every Tuesday I had spent with Min. Each memory now came with a second possible meaning. The 40% tips. The ordinary car. The man who arrived with jumper cables at 3 in the morning. The way Min always chose the seat facing the entrance. The call in my hallway. No security at the house. That is final. Some details became sweeter under the new light. Others became suspicious. That was the cruelty of discovering a secret after falling in love. Even the honest memories were forced to stand trial. At 4:12 in the morning, my phone lit up. Min, I will not contact you again until you ask. I am sorry. Whatever you decide, I will answer every question honestly. No excuses. No pressure. No paragraph about protecting me. I read the message 5 times and did not reply. By noon, the family group chat had become unusable. Auntie Pearl wanted to know whether Mr. Park still disliked mayonnaise. Cousin Dennis had sent a photograph of Reginald's face at the exact moment the guards bowed. My mother deleted it and then privately asked Dennis to send it to her. Chandra called 6 times. I ignored the first 5. On the 6th, I answered. I am sorry, she said immediately. You are embarrassed. I am both. That is not the same as being sorry. I know. I sat up in bed. Would you be apologizing if the guards had not come? Silence. That is the question, I said. Not whether you misjudged his bank account. Whether you believe a man deserves dignity before impressive people confirm it. I was trying to protect you. No, you were trying to protect the version of yourself that needs me to admire your choices. Her breath caught. I had never spoken to my sister that way before. Naomi, I cannot do this today. I ended the call. That afternoon, I returned to the Blue Plate. I had not worked there in nearly a year, but the manager still let me sit in the back booth after the lunch rush. The vinyl seat had the same tear. The coffee tasted exactly as burnt as I remembered. I sat where Min had sat on those Tuesdays and tried to decide whether the man who had listened to me talk about exams had been real. Tessa, the waitress who had taken my overnight shifts when I graduated, refilled my cup. You look like somebody handed you good news in a language you do not speak. That is almost exactly what happened. She slid into the opposite side of the booth during her break. I told her the simplified version. Not the company names, not the security alert. Just that Min came from a powerful family and had hidden it. Did he lie about loving you? She asked. No. Did he lie about being kind? No. Did he let you make decisions you would not have made if you knew? I thought about the engagement, the apartment, the years I had continued calculating every dollar while he had access to wealth I could barely imagine. Yes, I said. Maybe not intentionally, but yes. Then that is the part you talk about. It was the clearest advice anyone gave me. When I left the diner, a black sedan was parked across the road. For one hot second, anger rushed through me. I crossed the street, pulled open the passenger door, and found Sang-hoon sitting behind the wheel. You were told not to follow me. I am not assigned to follow you. You happened to be parked outside the diner? He held up a paper bag. Mr. Park left his phone in the blue plate storage room the night he proposed. The manager found it yesterday while clearing old lost property and called the number on the case. I was sent to collect it. I stared at him. Sang-hoon looked almost offended by the coincidence. Then he added, Mr. Park has followed your instruction. No one is monitoring you. Do you always call him Mr. Park? In public. And in private? A pause. Min. It was the first crack in the professional armor. I closed the door, then opened it again. How long have you known him? Since we were 14. That surprised me. You are not only his employee. No. Then tell me something he would not tell me because it makes him look bad. Sang-hoon's mouth almost moved toward a smile. He once attempted to cook rice without water. That cannot be true. The kitchen required repainting. I laughed despite myself. Then he became serious. He was wrong to hide the truth, but he did not hide you. Everyone closest to him knew your name before you knew ours. The answer comforted me and angered me at the same time. I stepped back from the car. Tell him I will meet him tomorrow. No guards. No family office. No expensive restaurant. Where? The diner. 2 a.m. Sang-hoon nodded. When Min received the message, he did not attempt to change the location. He arrived the next night in the same charcoal shirt he had worn the first Tuesday we met. This time, I knew it was not because he owned only 3. Min sat across from me in the back booth and placed both hands on the table. No watch. No phone. No security visible through the window. You asked for the truth, he said. I brought all of it. He began with his grandfather. Park Min-jae had arrived in California with almost nothing and built his first freight contract by sleeping in a warehouse office so he could answer calls at every hour. Over 40 years, one contract became trucks, warehouses, port access, private security, real estate, and a web of companies designed as much for privacy as for business. By the time Min was born, the Park name could open doors before he reached them. It could also attract people who wanted the doors more than they wanted him. His older brother, June, had married a woman who researched the family's holdings before their 3rd date. A cousin had been kidnapped briefly as a teenager, which explained the security culture. Business rivals photographed family homes. Former friends sold stories. Min learned early that every new relationship came with a silent question. Do they like me, or do they like what standing beside me might unlock? So you decided I did not deserve to answer that question for myself, I said. Yes. The honesty stung, but it mattered. He continued. He had not been pretending to work in logistics. He ran the night operations division for Park Maritime and had spent years visiting docks, warehouses, and long-haul routes because he refused to manage systems he had never personally worked inside. Sometimes he did drive trucks. Sometimes he unloaded freight. Sometimes he sat in meetings where one signature moved more money than my entire neighborhood would see in a decade. The ordinary sedan belonged to a rotating security fleet. The 3 shirts were simply the 3 he liked. The call about my battery had gone to Sang-hoon, who contacted a local driver. The guards had been assigned to him for years, but he often dismissed them when he visited the diner because he wanted one place where nobody entered before him. And the engagement ring? I asked. His eyes dropped to my purse, where I had placed it. I chose it because you once told me your mother's wedding band was the most beautiful ring you had ever seen. I remembered saying that during a slow shift. I also thought anything larger would force a conversation I was afraid to have. There it was. Not romance alone. Fear disguised as simplicity. You let me worry about money, I said. You watched me calculate groceries. You watched me refuse a better apartment because I thought we needed to save for the wedding. I offered to help. You offered as a man I believed had roughly the same limits I did. That changes the meaning of the offer. I know. You knew I was making plans based on false information. Yes. Why did you propose before telling me? His composure broke for the first time. Because I was selfish. I knew you loved me, and I wanted the certainty before I risked changing the way you looked at me. The diner seemed to go quieter around us. You tested me. Yes. I was not applying for a position in your family. I know. No, Min. You know now because the test failed. A person cannot prove she loves the real you when you decide which parts of the real you she is allowed to meet. He looked down. I have no defense. I believed that he meant it. That did not make forgiveness automatic. I pushed the sugar container toward the center of the table, aligning it with the napkin holder because my hands needed a task. I still love you. His eyes lifted. But I am not putting the ring back on tonight. He nodded slowly. I will wait. I do not want you to wait passively. I want transparency. I want to meet your family. I want to see where you work. I want to know what risks come with your name and what choices will be made about my security if I marry you. You will. And I need one more thing. Anything. No grand gesture. No buying my mother a house. No punishing Reginald. No making Chandra afraid of you. If you use power to smooth over what power helped hide, I will walk away. I have not touched Reginald's business. I know. Keep it that way. He reached across the table, then stopped before touching my hand. May I? I turned my palm upward. His thumb traced the familiar line. For the first time, the gesture did not calm me completely. But it did not feel false. Over the next 3 weeks, Min did exactly what I asked. He took me to the port at 5 in the morning, not to a polished executive floor, but to the operations room where dispatchers tracked, delayed containers and weather systems. Workers greeted him by name without bowing. One argued with him about a route change. Min listened, changed his decision, and thanked the man. I met his mother, Sun Hee, in a kitchen smaller than I expected. She served too much food and apologized for her son in 2 languages. I told him privacy is not permission to be dishonest, she said. Min looked offended. You said it more gently than that. No, I did not. His father asked about my accounting work and never once mentioned the family fortune. June, the older brother, watched me carefully until I told him I had removed the ring. Then his expression softened. Good, he said. Min stared at him. June continued. If she had accepted this without consequence, I would worry she had not understood it. That night, Min showed me a complete list of the family companies, properties, legal security protocols, and trusts that would affect me if we married. It was overwhelming. It was also the first time he had handed me the whole truth before I demanded a missing piece. We were rebuilding. Then Uncle Dale tried to turn the cracks into a doorway. 4 days after I met Min's family, Uncle Dale invited me to lunch. The message arrived through Chandra. Dale wants to apologize. He says he has information you should know. I almost deleted it. Then I remembered his face at the engagement party, the only face in the yard that had looked cornered instead of surprised. I agreed to meet him in a hotel restaurant downtown. Dale arrived with a leather portfolio. That told me everything before he spoke. Naomi, he began. First, I owe you and Min an apology. I misread the situation. You misread his net worth. His smile twitched. I misread several things. He opened the portfolio. Inside was a proposal from his brokerage, a regional distribution partnership that required access to one of Park Maritime's terminals. I thought Min might be willing to review this. As family, I closed the folder. You spent months trying to introduce me to Curtis. Dale leaned back. Curtis is a good man. That is not what I asked. His silence answered me. The truth came out slowly. Dale's brokerage had been struggling. Curtis, his godson, was positioned to inherit part of it. Dale had believed that marrying me to Curtis could eventually connect his company to the accounting firm where I worked and to several clients I handled. He had not known about the Parks then. Now that he did, he wanted a larger connection. You were trying to arrange my life like a merger, I said. That is unfair. You brought a contract to an apology. His face hardened. Do not be naive, Naomi. Families like the Parks do not separate relationships from business. Nobody does at that level. Min tried so hard to separate them that he nearly lost me. That is exactly why you should use the position wisely. I stood. Do not contact him. You cannot speak for him. No. But I can speak for me, and I am the only access you have. When I left the restaurant, Chandra was standing near the lobby elevators. She had followed Dale. I heard enough, she said. I expected defensiveness. Instead, she looked sick. He told me Curtis was only a joke. It was not. He told me he was worried you were marrying beneath yourself. He was worried I was marrying beyond his control. The elevator arrived, but neither of us entered. Chandra looked down at her hands. I helped him. You repeated what he wanted everyone to believe. I thought I was protecting you. You were protecting a system that made you feel valuable. She closed her eyes. This time, she did not argue. That evening, Chandra confronted Reginald. I know what happened because she came to my apartment afterward without makeup, without a designer handbag, and without the polished expression she wore whenever her marriage was being observed. Reginald had learned that his downtown development required a parcel controlled through a park subsidiary. Since the engagement party, 2 investors had started questioning whether his relationship with the family was damaged. He wanted Chandra to ask me to arrange a private dinner with Min. When she refused, he told her family loyalty should work both ways. "What did you say?" I asked. I told him he did not believe in family loyalty when he thought Min drove trucks. That was the first brave thing I had ever heard my sister say about her own marriage. Reginald's project did not collapse because Min retaliated. Min never called an investor or touched the land agreement. The project collapsed because Reginald panicked. At a board meeting, one investor asked whether his public disrespect toward a member of the Park family might complicate negotiations. Instead of acknowledging the mistake, Reginald claimed he could manage the family connection through me. Another investor asked whether I had agreed. He said that did not matter. Chandra, who had attended the meeting as his spouse and informal events coordinator, stood at the far end of the conference table and said, "It matters to her." The room changed. She told the board that neither Min nor I had offered access, favors, or support. She told them Reginald had been pressuring her to use my engagement for business leverage. She also admitted that her own behavior at the party had been cruel. Reginald accused her of humiliating him. She answered, "No. I am refusing to help you hide the way you humiliate other people." One investor withdrew that afternoon. Another paused funding pending a governance review. The project had already been over-leveraged, and without their commitments, the remaining financing failed. It was not revenge. It was consequence. A man who had spent years treating rooms like stages finally spoke too much in front of people whose money depended on his judgment. Chandra moved into my mother's house 2 weeks later. She did not leave Reginald because his project failed. She left because, for the first time, she heard him describe people the way she had been describing them and recognized her own voice. Her apology to me came at the blue plate. She chose the location herself. "I was wrong before the SUVs," she said. "I need you to believe that I understand that now. I believe you are beginning to. I called him a nobody because I needed your life to validate mine. If you could be happy with a man nobody was impressed by, then I had to ask whether being impressive was the only reason I was happy. Were you?" She looked into her coffee. No, I did not forgive her all at once, but I let her sit across from me. Sometimes reconciliation begins with nothing more glamorous than not leaving the table. Min and I did not resume our engagement immediately. For 2 months, we dated again. Not from the beginning that would have been dishonest, but from the place where the truth had interrupted us. He came to my apartment without a driver. I attended family meetings where security plans were discussed in front of me instead of decided elsewhere. We argued about whether I needed protection at work. We compromised on a driver only when credible risks existed, and I kept the right to say no when they did not. He never bought my forgiveness. He earned back trust through repetition, answering before I asked, explaining before decisions hardened, and allowing me to disagree without treating my independence as a threat. One Tuesday at 2 a.m, we returned to the Blue Plate parking lot. The neon sign still flickered. Min held out his hand. My original ring lay in his palm. "I am not proposing again," he said. "You already answered that question once. I am asking whether I have become honest enough for your answer to still be yes." I looked at the ring, then at him. "You understand that the answer comes with conditions. I have them written down." He pulled a folded paper from his pocket. I laughed so hard I cried. Then I put the ring back on. We married the following spring in my mother's backyard beneath the same string lights. I refused the ballroom his family offered, the private estate his brother suggested, and the luxury hotel Chandra once would have considered essential. I wanted the folding chairs. I wanted my mother's flower beds. I wanted the side gate. Not because the engagement party had been perfect, but because it had forced every person in that yard to show who they were when status suddenly changed. My mother walked me down the makeshift aisle. Auntie Pearl cried before the music began and denied it afterward. Cousin Dennis had been warned that photographing anyone's shocked face would result in immediate removal. Chandra stood beside me. She was separated from Reginald by then and rebuilding a life that did not require his company name to introduce her. She had begun counselling, which she announced with the same determination she once reserved for resort reservations. Uncle Dale did not receive an invitation. My mother claimed it must have been lost. Nobody investigated. Min waited beneath the arch in a dark suit, looking exactly like the man from the diner, and nothing like the myth my relatives had constructed after the SUVs arrived. His parents sat in the second row beside my aunties. June whispered something that made my mother laugh. For once, both families occupied the same space without anyone calculating what the connection might be worth. Sang-hoon stood near the back gate. No formation, no dramatic entrance, no bow. Just a lifelong friend making sure the day remained ordinary. Min wrote his vows on the back of a blue plate receipt. He read the first line with a perfectly straight face. Black coffee, wheat toast, $6.42. The yard laughed. Then he folded the receipt. I spent most of my life believing that being known made a person vulnerable, he said. Naomi taught me that being partly known can be its own kind of loneliness. She loved me when she believed I had little, but that does not excuse the parts of myself I withheld. So I promise not only to love her, but to let her see the life she is being asked to share. Before decisions, before fear, before silence becomes a wall. I cried before he finished. My vows were simpler. I fell in love with the man who noticed when one more bad thing would have been too much. I am marrying the man who learned that protection without trust can become another kind of harm. I choose both the kindness and the truth. I will accept one without the other no longer. When he slid the thin gold band onto my finger, I glanced toward Sang-hoon. He allowed himself the smallest smile. At the reception, Chandra found me beside the dessert table, the same place where she had once studied my ring, and decided it was evidence of failure. This time, she handed me a card. You picked right before anyone else understood what they were looking at, she said. I did not know everything either. No. But you looked for character. I looked for credentials. She hugged me. I am sorry. There was no audience gathered around us, no guards, no dramatic reversal. That was how I knew the apology was real. Later, after the final guests left, Min and I stood alone beneath the lights while my mother collected abandoned cups. You know, he said, taking my hand, the ring still matters less than the place. You have used that line twice. I plan to use it for the next 50 years. You will need new material. I have resources. I laughed and leaned against him. From the gate, Sang-hoon cleared his throat. Sir, the car is ready. Min looked toward him. We are staying 5 more minutes. Sang-hoon bowed his head, not deeply, not ceremonially, just enough to hide another smile. 5 minutes became 20. My mother watched from the porch, smiling because she understood us. That is the truth behind the night my sister called my fiancé a nobody and 6 guards bowed to him. The guards revealed Min's power, but they did not prove his worth. His worth had been visible long before the SUVs in remembered exam dates, quiet tips, jumper cables, and the refusal to add one more bad thing to a difficult night. The bow exposed my sister's prejudice. The secret exposed Min's fear. And what came afterward forced all of us to become more honest than humiliation alone ever could. Chandra had believed a man mattered only when a room recognized his name. Reginald believed respect flowed toward whoever controlled the biggest deal. Uncle Dale believed relationships were doors that clever people could convert into access. Min believed wealth made genuine love impossible unless he hid it. Every one of them was wrong. Love is not proven by poverty. It is not proven by wealth. It is proven by whether 2 people can stand inside the complete truth without using it to make the other smaller. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is powerful. Sometimes he is simply kind. And sometimes the most important moment is not when everyone finally bows to him. It is when he learns to stop hiding from the one person who never asked him to bow at all.